Welcome, everyone. We'll get started in maybe another minute or 2 minutes, but take some time to say hello to each other if you'd like, or just gaze out at the Zoom community. And of course, here in Minneapolis, some people are in the building. Welcome to those here in the building. And yeah, just nice to acknowledge that we're in community. And we need to really work at that because it's a source of energy. We feel moved when we realize we're not alone. And this isn't just in terms of our Buddhist practice. We actually, because like it or not, we have been conditioned to be social beings. And a lot of the safety that allows us to do whatever needs to be done in life arises because we feel safe. And I mean, it's different for each of us to some degree, but basically safety comes from feeling embedded in social community and relationship and belonging. And we all know probably it's not perfect, and it comes, our relationships, our belonging, our community engagement comes with complications, to say the least. Still, we don't really have a choice, about being social beings. So we've got to figure out how to use this and embody our social reality. And this is a nice time, the minutes before we begin a program, in this relatively new world for most of us online, to just feel like we belong together, that we share this interest in using our heart and mind to get to know the heart and mind. And just being grateful, finding a natural gratefulness that we can be here together, that we're not actually alone. And then even widening it out, like using your imagination and appreciating the women, the men, the folks before us. They had complicated, difficult lives like we do, and yet they found a way to show up and to learn. And they probably did it in a community context. Learning from others, being inspired by others, teaching others, inspiring others. And like this, we are the fortunate beneficiaries of these many, many generations of folks before us, doing the practice, becoming wiser, kinder human beings, modeling that wisdom and kindness in our lives, and it gets passed down. And so we want to feel that inspiration. And yeah, because we need that upliftment, that energy that comes from inspiration. And we can be part of being inspired. It's not like just waiting around to be inspired. It really matters like where we put our attention. If all we notice are the weeds and the dog poop on the sidewalk, we're probably not going to be inspired. But if we take a little time to scroll through who's here on Sunday morning, and even to recognize some of the smiles and the names, and to just have that sense of lineage, it's not really a Buddhist lineage, although we use that language sometimes. It's really a lineage of human common sense that have been passed down in different ways through human culture. We're not, dealing with just human ignorance and human stupidity and human superficiality. There's also beautiful, deep, wide rivers of kindness and compassion and wisdom that we get to tune into, we get to align with. So take the time to do that as we give folks another minute or so to show up. And I've put a document there in the chat, and that will have the chant that we're going to do in just a moment. I thought today, as we move onward to a wise effort as one of the 10 Paramis, these beautiful qualities, perfections of the heart, qualities of the heart that we want to develop. And the next one, we're right in the middle of this list, having done generosity and moral sensitivity and renunciation and wisdom. We come to the fifth of energy, wise effort, or persistence. And so there's some resources in that handout, but at the bottom of that handout that I just shared, you'll find also this chant of the Buddha's 5 recollections. Sometimes it's called, or the 5 remembrances. So let's do this to begin, and then we'll have about a 35-minute sit. The Buddha's 5 subjects for frequent recollection. And if you don't have it in front of you, that's okay. You can just listen and reflect on the words that I'll be chanting. If you want, just chant along with me, of course, keeping yourself muted. I am of the nature to age. I have not gone beyond aging. I am of the nature to sicken. I have not gone beyond sickness. I am of the nature to die. I have not gone beyond dying. All that is mine, beloved and pleasing, will become otherwise, will become separated from me. I am the owner of my karma, heir to my karma, born of my karma, related to my karma, abide supported by my karma. Whatever karma I shall do, for good or for ill, of that I will be the heir. Thus we should frequently recollect. Letting the words make their impression on our heart. It's really, this chant in part is chanted to arouse energy, sort of sobers us up, wakes us up. Oh yeah, I do want to use this life wisely. And that's why I'm choosing to sit now in a way that is upright and supports alertness, in a way that's also comfortable and relaxed, that supports a sense of ease and safety. So do your best. It won't be perfect, but we do our best to cultivate a sitting posture that seems to meet both of those values of being relaxed and comfortable and being upright and alert. And to help settle in, you may want to take a couple of consciously deep, full, relaxed breaths where you fill the lungs, and in an easeful way you empty the lungs. And just use it as an opening ritual, really, that allows us to come more fully into the moment as it is. We have all the time in the world to fill and empty the lungs a few times at the beginning of the sit. And finishing with the next long and easy exhalation. And then eventually letting the breathing continue on its own. And we can be grateful that the breath can be a natural process. It doesn't require any mental oversight at all. It can just be a natural bodily process of breathing in and breathing out. Even if it feels forced or contrived in some way, just trust the body to breathe, whatever that might be like. And we take a few moments here at the beginning of the sitting time to just recollect what it is to be mindfully aware of the present moment. And of course, we might have all kinds of ideas about what it means to be mindfully aware. So practice not getting confused by the ideas you have. And instead, just in a more natural, of course, direct way, just sensing directly what it is to be present, what it is to be distracted. And in particular this morning and for the next weeks, we're going to resolve to be particularly interested in the kind of effort that's needed now in the moment to sustain this interest in the present moment. And remember, it's not about, doesn't have to be about directing the attention to the meditation object, although that can help, of course, like bringing the attention to the breath. But even before we start using a specific meditation object like breathing in and breathing out, we can just explore what it is to be mindfully aware. This is being known. It's like this now. Where the awareness is, in a sense, illuminating, connecting with the present moment. Whatever it is that the mind is knowing, there's this reflective recognition. This is being known. This experience of the present moment is being felt. It's like this. We don't really know what being distracted is all about until we have more of a clear sense of what it is to be present and what it is to sustain present moment awareness. So don't be afraid now to be a total beginner about what it is to be present, what it is to sustain present moment awareness, and what it is that gets in the way of this continuity of present moment awareness. These are the only three things we're concerned about. What it is to be mindfully aware of the present moment, regardless of what it is that's being known. What it is to sustain that present moment awareness, the continuity, and what it is to have it interrupted and for the mind to become distracted. You could say these are three insights that we want to develop. The experience of being present, the experience of sustaining that presence, mindful presence, the experience of learning something about how that sustained mindful presence gets interrupted or disturbed. And you could say there's a fourth, which is the beginning again, starting over, which is very similar to the first, what it is to be mindfully aware. And what kind of effort, kind of wise effort is needed. And sometimes you'll learn how it can be useful to turn the attention to a chosen meditation object. Often what's recommended is to be aware of the whole body sitting, or if the awareness is refined enough, just to notice the next inhalation or exhalation as a natural phenomena happening here and now. Whether you use more the totality of the experience of the body, or the more specific process of breathing in or breathing out, it's really up to you. What's helpful in that reconnecting. But it can also be simply recognizing what's predominant, what's naturally being felt and known here and now. Making peace with whatever's moving in the heart and the mind and body, just as it is. Ah, this is being known. This is being felt. It's just like this now. Can it be okay to allow whatever's being known to be what it is? Something being known, something coming and going, a movement of the body or mind. Because it's just what it is, something being known. So let's continue in silence for a while now. So whether you're using a specific meditation object or just practicing more of an open awareness of whatever's predominant, we're reflecting on these three discoveries or insights: the experience of connecting, realizing this is being known. So connecting with the present moment, understanding what it is to be aware of the present moment. The second is learning something about how this present moment awareness is sustained moment by moment for periods of time. And the third insight we're developing is how it is that this continuity of mindful awareness is interrupted. How, in a sense, the mind takes the bait, gets identified, and then lost in thought or some reaction, and so becomes unaware of the present moment, unaware that this is being known. And then the fourth is really related to the first, which is starting over, recognizing, oh yeah, this is being known. The reestablishing of mindful awareness. Part of the art of beginning again is in that moment, that willingness to feel whatever we feel. When we realize, the mind realizes that it's been lost in thought or caught up in some drama, and now mindfulness reemerges. And there's right in that first moment a choice. Can I be willing, am I willing to feel what it feels like to be present? Because the heart will naturally have to receive any residual feeling from having been caught up or lost in thought. There will be a feeling. In a way, it's the karmic fruit of having been lost in thought, is that in the body and the heart, there's an ongoing reverberation of having been lost in thought. So in that moment, it can be helpful just to say something like, it feels like this now. Of course, silently in the mind, it feels like this now. Can it be okay that it feels like this now? Is it safe enough just to relax and feel whatever's here to feel? Is it safe to be present again? To be aware that this is being known, that this is being felt, and to allow things to be what they are. These movements of body and mind unfolding lawfully according to so many causes and conditions. This is how it is now. So for just another couple minutes, exploring especially this continuity of mindful awareness, and what is that like to have some momentum, some continuity of being present? And of course, any moment, any experience will do. Because in this sense, mindfulness doesn't really care what's being known. Mindfulness knows how to open and acknowledge, oh yeah, it's like this now. This is the experience, it's being felt and known, feels like this. So adjust your body as you need to, so you're comfortable. And a big welcome to everyone. One more time, I'll share the document that has some study resources for everyone. Feel free to open that up or copy that link so you can have access to the study materials if you want to do a little study to support your practice. There's a short article that I wrote about wise effort and some quotes from the Buddhist teachings about wise effort, and a few other things there as well, including some basic resources for this ongoing study of the 10 paramis, the 10 beautiful perfections of the heart, one by Sylvia Boorstein, a wonderful little book that they wrote a long time ago. Sylvia is one of the founders of Spirit Rock Meditation Center in California, and a long time one of our elders in our Western early Buddhism tradition lineage. And the other is written by Ajahn Sushito, one of our elders, monastic elders in the Western early Buddhist tradition. He's in the Thai forest lineage, and a wonderful teacher. And he has a book on the Paramis as well. So you can find the links to those books in that link that I put in the chat. And as I mentioned at the beginning, we're moving on now to the 5th of the 10 paramis, wise energy, wise effort, or persistence, vigilance. Yeah, and you see it's a natural following to wisdom, which we studied the last 4 weeks, I think, because the more, like just in the most basic understanding of wisdom from an early Buddhist point of view, it's knowing the difference between what's helpful and not helpful, knowing the difference between wholesome qualities of the heart and unwholesome, unskillful qualities of the heart. And of course, the more we get clear, and it isn't like judgmental, like, oh, I'm bad, or oh, I'm good. It's really, oh no, this really works. Oh, this doesn't work. It's really practical or pragmatic, this knowing the difference between what's wholesome and unwholesome, or what's helpful and unhelpful. It's very pragmatic. So it makes sense that the next thing we'd study is like this inspiration, like now that I have a better lay of the land, what helps, what doesn't help, I have some energy. It's sort of like, just in a grosser way, now that I know where the treasure is hidden, I've got some energy to go get it. And you could imagine, like, if we really have some more intuition, some more clarity about how to be happy, we'd have energy to go there, right? A lot of the lack of energy, the depressive qualities we have at times, helpless qualities, really come about because we don't know what to do with ourselves. We don't know where to find happiness. So, we're willing to settle for things that we kind of know aren't going to make us happy, watch another TV show or waste our time in this way or that way. Because in a sense, the mind rationalizes, well, I don't really know what I'm doing as a human being in the sense of finding a deeper, more resonant happiness. So, I might as well just entertain myself as best I can just to get by. And so a lot of our inefficient strategies for happiness, it's because we haven't taken that and dedicated the time to getting really clear. And the other piece of this is we've gotten addicted to short-term results. And we see this just even in practical ways. People who have a longer-term vision, and so they're willing to apply themselves to something because over time, it really leads to beneficial results, as opposed to times when we just don't have that long-term vision. So we just need a quick fix. I need to go to the fridge and get a quick fix, some sugar probably, or some fat, right? Something that has a temporary satisfaction when I put it in my mouth and chew, or clicking on something on the internet. And there's that temporary satisfaction. The mind is captivated for 5 minutes, and I have some distance from my suffering, from my underlying anxiety, because I'm watching a video for 5 minutes, and I get a little escape. And you can see, when we step back and we look at these patterns, we see this is that basic addictive pattern where the mind has less resilience for a longer term strategy for happiness that leads to more satisfying, more resilient, more stable happiness, and more dependent on the next short-term fix. and the next short-term fix. And in a way, just even, I'm not even talking about deeper spiritual insight, just on a basic level, the difference between people who are healthier and unhealthier, emotionally, psychologically, and physically, has a lot to do with whether they have the good fortune to still, the stability and the safety to still be applying themselves towards more longer term happiness, as opposed to being really addicted and caught in these short-term cycles of just the next fixed and the next fixed. And we all get those places, where there's so much stress in our lives, so much difficulty, that we're just, for periods of time, really trapped in those short-term cycles where we're just getting by, like, I'm getting through the day because I know at the end of the day I'm going to do this. And there's this carrot that's dangling in front of me. And if there weren't that carrot, I wouldn't be able to get through the day. And, and sometimes we'll catch ourselves being a little desperate. We'll dangle this carrot, that's not good enough. We'll try another carrot. We'll add a few carrots together and dangle 4 carrots. And finally, it's like we get motivated with those carrots. Or, we dangle the things that scare us, and that can be motivating. But generally, the direction of more wisdom, more spiritual wisdom, is we're interested in the wholesome fear and or you could say wholesome concerns and the wholesome excitements, things that are motivating, that are very, very long term. Because more than anything, when we're more reflective, more than anything, we want to get off this rat race of short-term fixes where we feel oppressed and imprisoned by this short-term dance of just need the next fix, the next pleasant experience, and running away from the next painful experience. And the heart has no long-term vision. What's the point of human existence? Is there actually any stable, trustworthy release of this heart? Or is the best I can hope for a neurotic, never-ending dance towards one sense pleasure after another and avoiding one sense pain after another? Is that all we can do? It's a little bit like those old Westerns where somebody's shooting at somebody's foot and they're kind of moving their feet frantically trying to avoid being shot. Like, is that what we hope for in life? Is to avoid, being shot, not really being in control and just dancing faster and faster? Well, of course, it's breaks our heart. Oh, is there another way? And the Buddha says this in one of his talks, the wholesome response to seeing that frantic dancing towards, obsessing about what sense pleasure is going to make my life worth living. And it, remember, it could be something like finding the perfect partner or having the perfect job or saving enough for the perfect retirement or getting the perfect diet and perfect exercise regimen so the body becomes perfectly healthy, or finding just the right breed of dog to find that perfect pet that will be my perfect metta object, loving kindness object that will make my heart sing, or, until it doesn't, until it dies, or until something happens, or we realize the dog has to be walked twice a day and I didn't sign up for that and don't really feel like doing that, and on and on. So it's really a sign of healthiness to, when we can step back, we can be honest about what we're doing to be happy and seeing the limitations of those strategies, and wonder, like the Buddha says, is there anybody who knows anything about real happiness? And we don't want to just believe somebody who says they know something about real happiness. We want to check it out. And that's that famous line from early Buddhism, ehi passiko, is the Pali. Please come and see, check it out, see if this is of value in your life. These teachings, these practices, check them out. Because as the Buddha says in one of the discourses, if you do check it out, if you give it enough time, you'll see that engaging these practices are beneficial in the beginning, the middle, and the end. We will sense the liberating, we'll sense this taste of freedom just in the beginning. And it's actually really important that every day when we do our daily sit, or you come on Sunday morning, or whatever your ongoing practice looks like, you really want to look like, do I sense directly, not hypothetically, theoretically, but directly in my own experience, that the planting of the seeds for happiness are themselves a cause for happiness here and now? And avoiding planting seeds for unhappiness is a cause for happiness here and now, not later when I'm perfect, a perfect Buddha, but right now. We really have to sense that more subtle happiness of being on a path that's lawful in the sense that it delivers. Like the Buddha, the image the Buddha uses is the Ganges River. Just as the Ganges River, because so much of his 45 years of teaching were along the Ganges River plain in the foothills of the Himalaya and then around the floodplains of the Ganges River and the towns and cities there at the time of the Buddha, 2,500 years ago or so. And he says, just as the Ganges River inclines toward the ocean, so too, if we cultivate the stability of present moment awareness, the heart inclines towards liberation, toward the unconditional release of the grip of craving, the grip of fear, the grip of longing. And we realize the heart that isn't gripped, even as we live our life, even as we carry out our responsibilities. It's not that we're transported to heaven. This release arises in this conditioned space, this circumstantial space of our life, even if it's really unfortunate conditions or circumstances that we're facing, like dying or being with a loved one who's dying or dealing with, racial oppression or economic injustice and difficulty, uncertainty. That's a big promise. And instead of like, oh, no way, hopefully we're at least interested enough to check it out. Could that be? Could there be a peace, a release, a happiness that isn't a function of our conditions or circumstances? It's provocative. We should naturally be suspicious, like, that sounds a little bit too good to be true, that I could be sick and still happy. I could be dying and experiencing this release, this heart that is unburdened. I could be in a cultural situation where I'm being taken advantage of. And that would be difficult and unpleasant, but the heart would be unburdened by this very real oppression that I'm experiencing in this sort of relative level of my life in relationship to these other people. Both could be true. Like, I could be experiencing a lot of emotional pain or physical pain, and the heart would be unburdened, not suffering because of these circumstances. And this, like any authentic spiritual practice or path, this is what it's pointing to, right? Because what we're interested, like as spiritual beings, what we're interested in is we're interested in something that is relevant here and now, not a promise that's somewhere else, that is delivered somewhere else. But like, is there a way to be living here and now? Is there a possibility of release here and now? That's what I'm interested in, because this is where I am right now, here and now. Otherwise, it's only theoretical. It's another promise that's never kept. If you're good, you'll get your just desserts. As opposed to, if you're good, you'll start to feel those just desserts right now. You'll know you're living a skillful way because of the quality of your heart being less burdened. And this is what makes a spiritual path actually real and authentic, is we're moving in this direction that everything is moving in the direction of being independent, like the mind's own sensitivity to its own heart is showing us the way, as opposed to a path that leads us to be more and more dependent on what somebody has told us, what some institution has told us. So even though we're very grateful and in a sense dependent on the Buddhist teachings and other wise people sharing what they've come to learn from their own practice, the whole point of hearing those teachings is to become independent. And this is especially relevant around the teachings of wise effort. This is where we've learned a thing or two and the heart is now inspired. And then how do we direct that energy of inspiration? What do we do with that motivation, that sincere motivation? I really want to take care of this life, this heart. And not only that, I'd really like to contribute to the well-being of those around me because they're like me. They want to be happy, and not just temporarily happy and then later desperate for more of it, right? In that addictive cycle. People want to be happy in a way that doesn't come and go. That's what our heart naturally is seeking, the release from the rat race. We're always struggling to be happy, always struggling to get away from the monsters that are going to make us unhappy, like getting older or experiencing financial insecurity or losing the people we love. We want a stability of heart, a release that allows us to live our life, to do what we can, contribute, engage, all the while the heart is released. To feel what it feels like to be a human being without being in the grip. So it isn't about like somehow we confuse the superficial expression of equanimity and balance and non-attachment. You know, we have this idea, and the only way our mind without deeper insight can interpret, the only way we can interpret it is, oh, that person doesn't care. That person doesn't feel. But that's not what the Buddhist teachings, practices point to. It's like we're an ordinary human being who feels loss and feels gain, but the heart remains not tied in knots, not burdened, not in a grip because of the ups and downs of life. And we probably have learned a thing or two about that, those of us who've been gaining wisdom directly through our Buddhist practices or indirectly just through trial and error and learning from human life, right? We've been learning that the grip of attachment isn't actually helpful or functional. And so just through trial and error, we'll learn how to stay engaged, because thinking I want not to be engaged, that's its own trap, isn't it? Like spending all our energy to somehow imagine not having responsibilities as a human being or not having to care or how we cannot feel. That's its own trap. Running away, being in denial. So we eventually realized that, you know, life is sort of all in or nothing. There's really no alternative to being a happy human being than being all in, really showing up. And that means showing up to our karmic or, you know, our actual circumstances. Doesn't mean we don't make choices, and doesn't mean we don't turn away or sometimes even run away when there's danger or it's an appropriate place for us. But we don't imagine we're going to somehow escape the ups and downs that comes with human existence, embodied life, being a sexual being who needs to eat and needs social interaction and needs to deal with power, because the social interactions are all defined by power. Who has it, who doesn't, who wants it, what kind of power people have. This is our embodied life. It's, needless to say, it's messy, it's complicated, And it's rich with feeling, and not all of it is pleasant. The feeling we feel, the feelings we feel. So what does freedom look like with that? And this is really what wise effort comes in. Initially, when we get a sense that there are skillful ways for me to be showing up with kindness, this moral sensitivity, this compassion, with this capacity to let go, to be here without attachment, this valuing of clarity and sensitivity, as opposed to feeling like being sensitive is just too hard and I'd rather be not sensitive. A lot of our habits, like drinking or drugs or watching too much media, it's a way of desensitizing our hearts because we don't know what to do with the exposure of being a sensitive human being. So with more and more wisdom, we realize that the stability of mindful awareness, present moment awareness, it knows how to be sensitive because there's a balancing as the sensitivity, as the clarity develops, increases, so does that sense of calm, that sense of well-being. There's a wholeness, or sometimes we use the word stability, that comes with samadhi, that continuity of present moment awareness. There's a wholeness, a stability, let's just call it a good feeling that comes, that balances the exposure that also comes with the continuity of present moment awareness. If more and more present moment awareness didn't come with that wholesome, good feeling of wholeness, we wouldn't be able to develop the practice. And this in part is what the Buddha discovered, that the good feeling, that good inner feeling of being stably aware, really is the counterweight for the greater and greater exposure as we sense more of what's coming and going, not only in our own heart, so to speak, but also as we sense what's going on with everybody else. In a way, we learn that it's okay to have our heart broken over and over again, continuously even. It's like that there is a capacity to feel what humans are capable of feeling. Like one, I think, really wisdom teaching we can remind ourselves, it's almost like, am I sure that it's not safe to be feeling so much? Because a lot of times when we're feeling something really strong, it can seem like, oh, this is just too much. But we always want to wonder, like, could this be okay to be opening and relaxing and receiving? Is there enough stability, enough trust that whatever I'm feeling, however intense it is, it's this feeling being felt? That's all it is. Not more and not less. It is an intense feeling being felt. But when the mind then builds a story on top of it, then that could be immediately unworkable. So it's more the story that involves attachment and identification that makes the intensity of what we feel as human beings, what makes it unworkable. So this is all really in the service of inspiring us to learn how, because this is our first job, this application of our mind towards the continuity of mindful awareness, and to be on the lookout for those two natural, or you could say karmic fruits. Like when we have the stability, continuity of awareness, there should be a good feeling and there should be greater and greater sensitivity and exposure, and the two balance themselves. And it's an art and science to keep those two things in balance, where the stability of present moment awareness and the good feeling that comes and the trustworthiness of that stability of present moment awareness is there to balance the greater and greater exposure that we feel as we see our own stuff, our own habits of mind, that we're responsible for, even though it's not personal. My personality is not personal, but it's my responsibility. My personalities are arising out of innumerable causes and conditions, like my culture and all the conditioning factors, like my parents and my friends, and like I said, my culture. And then you end up with a personality like this. And of course, including the genetics that have partly shaped my personality, right? It's not personal, but not taking responsibility for my personality is itself a cause for suffering. So we have to be all in. Oh yeah, this is how it is. I have this personality. I live in this world, in this community, these communities, with these relationships, with these good, these places of good fortune and these places of not such good fortune. None of it is fair in the sense of it's not equally distributed, like our good fortune, our absence of good fortune, the difficulties that we face, whether it's ill health or being in a culture, in a society where we're being taken advantage of in one way or another. But it only is useful to be all in. And the teachings then say, if you make the effort, these 3 efforts I talked about in this set, to recognize what it is to be present and to notice that feels right. That's important to connect moments of being present with a direct feedback in your own heart, in your own mind, body, heart, here in the moment. This direct feedback. This feels right. This feels on the way toward happiness. This feels good and is on the way to more goodness. And that's not theoretical, that should be direct. So we need to know what it is to be present. We need to know what it is to sustain that present moment awareness so that we feel exponentially, actually, that momentum build towards samadhi. Samadhi is that unifying or that gathering of the heart and mind until it feels the present moment experience is like solid. The continuity of awareness viscerally feels solid. Like in a sense, our life is held by this continuity of awareness. It's trustworthy. There's a sense of well-being and wholeness when we have some continuity of present moment awareness. Just in the same way that when we're scattered and the energies of the mind is dissipated, we're totally vulnerable to different kinds of triggers when the mind is not stable. A memory could arise and we could be totally thrown off balance by some difficult memory, or somebody could say something to us, or we could be reminded of something, and immediately the heart, the body starts to experience stress. But when we have that stability of awareness, it's kind of like we have immunity from being triggered. We still, the normal responses happen. We see something, a memory arises, but there's some capacity the mind has, like Teflon, oh yeah, it's just that. So it's not like we're not sensitive, we're more sensitive. We feel more, but it's all okay to be feeling what we're feeling. The mind doesn't get entrapped by our conditioning. We still have the conditioning, but the mind doesn't get entrapped or entangled with it in ways that are weightful. And that is really inspiring. So we need to know what it is to be present. We need to discover that building up of the momentum of or continuity of present moment awareness. And then only really when we get a little bit of continuity, moments where there are continuity, do we really see the mechanics, psychological, spiritual mechanics of getting distracted, losing the continuity. What are those off-ramps that our mind almost always takes towards distractedness, superficiality, getting caught up in our hopes and fears, our self-centered dramas about the world, about our own life, doesn't really matter, on and on like that. And it's only when we see the off-ramps that we see there's a choice. We don't really we can't really see how we can avoid distraction without having that continuity. The continuity illuminates how distraction happens. When we really see the reality of the mind getting distracted, we start to see the reality of refraining from taking the off-ramp. We have to feel the seductive, enticing aspect of the off-ramp to go thinking about that or worrying about that or planning. And when we feel it, see it, then we realize I can just feel what it feels like to have this impulse to worry. I could just be exposed to that feeling of wanting to think that, wanting to complain about this, wanting to blame this person. I could just feel that in the moment, in the mind and body. And that's the choice. I don't want to feel it, so I'm going to go think it. Thinking is almost, this unwholesome kind of thinking that I'm talking about is almost always a way to avoid feeling what we're feeling. And when we realize that, we realize how much more skillful it is just to be willing to be exposed and feel what we feel. Whatever's been triggered is just the next thing to feel. Okay, feels like this. It always occurs to us that I can't feel this, it's too much, it's too yucky, it's too whatever. But it's just not true. There is wisdom, awareness, the good heart, whatever you want to call it. It has the capacity to just be with whatever comes and goes. Because it's coming and going. It's not self really in that sense we think it is. It's just the nature of the mind, the heart, the body. These rivers of feeling, these rivers of experiencing that are coming and going and coming and going. And that's just how it is. And it's okay that it's that way. We don't need to worry about it. We don't need to control it. I want to end with a few quotes. These are from a few from one of my teachers, Sayadaw U Tejaniya. He's a Burmese Buddhist monk who's come to the States to teach in the past. One place he said, "It is very important to keep trying to maintain the intention to remain aware all of the time, whether awareness is actually continuous or not. This points to the essential quality of right effort, persistence. It is not a forceful effort, but rather an inner determination to sustain the tiny bit of energy you need in each moment to know you are aware and to keep that going." And I thought this could be a good conversation for those of you who can stay for the small groups today, or just to contemplate on your own as a kind of homework, or to talk with a friend during the week. But just to first get really interested, well, what kind of effort, like even right now, listening to me talk, what kind of effort is required for you right now to be aware that hearing Mark and understanding Mark's words, this is being known. Like being in this place where I'm listening and seeing and feeling the body, how much effort is required? What kind of effort is required to be mindfully aware? Oh, it's like this. This experience here and now is being known. There is a very real effort that's required. What kind of effort is that? What is it like to sustain that effort? Because even, normally when we're listening, like we're doing now, most of you are doing now, we tend not to be mindfully aware that we're listening. We think we have to be absorbed, but we can have that sort of space of knowing, that reflective space of knowing, oh, listening to Mark is like this, sitting's like this. It's almost like instead of a focused attention, it's more about the breadth of present moment awareness, where we're aware that the seeing of the screen is being known and that there's comprehending of the words that Mark is speaking is being known, and the sitting body is being felt, and it's like this, being human is like this now. And then what's it like to sustain that? What kind of effort do I need not to forget? It's really the effort of not forgetting the present moment. There is a present moment being known, but it's so much our habit to not be aware. So what is it? So that could be interesting to share in the small groups, like moments or places in your life where it's relatively easy to have this sustained present moment awareness, and also sharing in the small groups or in your own reflections this week, where is it in your life where it really seems especially hard to be present and to sustain present moment awareness, where you just can't seem to find the wise effort needed to sustain it, that one way or another, the mind always takes those off ramps. Yeah, it'd be really good to get interested in. Of course, we'll continue this topic for a couple more weeks, maybe 2 or 3 more weeks, as we look at wise effort. The effort to recognize present moment awareness, to sustain it, and to get curious about what interrupts it. Those are the 3, you could say, expressions of wise effort. To know what present moment awareness is, to know how to sustain it, to make the effort to sustain it, to make the effort to learn something about how the mind loses its continuity of present moment awareness. So even when you're using an exclusive meditation object, and you can do it all, you're chopping vegetables, and just take it as a little training, like, what does it mean to be present? What does it mean to sustain this present moment awareness as I'm chopping vegetables? How is it that I lose the continuity over and over again? And in 5 minutes, we'll learn a thing or two. And if you do that many times during the day and during your formal meditation time, then in a few weeks, you'll know a lot more than you did a few weeks before. And it's like that over time, we become very wise. So before we end, I just want to mention there's a day-long retreat on Saturday. I'll be leading it. I think it starts at 9:30 and ends at 4, both in person at the center wearing masks and online on Zoom. Please sign up for that if you'd like. And in general, we really encourage people to get on the weekly email, especially these days with the pandemic and things are in motion. Just it's the best way for us to communicate with the community. And we try only to send 1 email out per week. We're pretty good at that, just not to overwhelm people with too many emails. So you can get on that by just sending the center an email that you want to be on the weekly email list, or you can go from the website, register yourself to get that weekly email. I forget, I think it's under the About Us menu item. And one more time, there is that link I sent out. Maybe I'll put it one more time in case people want the resources. A heads up, in the middle of September, we're going to have our next masculinity conversation, community conversation for anybody who identifies as male or masculine. Join us out at Prairie Farm, Common Grounds Retreat Property for the day. Saturday, I'm forgetting. It's right in the middle of the month. It should be on the calendar. Sign up for that. We'll help organize carpools so people can drive out. And we'll have a day to just reflect about how to be skillful given our male conditioning in our society, in our relationships. And as always, there's a time to have your questions answered. I have a weekly practice check-in with Win Fricke, the co-founder of Common Ground Meditation Center. We do it every Sunday afternoon at 4:30. Stacy McClendon, one of our Dharma teachers, and I do it on Tuesday at 12 noon. Shelley Graff, one of our staff Dharma teachers, along with myself. Shelley does it every Thursday at, I think, 9:30, could be 9 o'clock in the morning, but I think 9:30 on Thursdays. And then Ramesh Sairam does it every other week on Saturday at 10:30. Great time to be in conversation with a small group of community members and to get your questions answered.